Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Young Thug and Future album, Super Slimey. This is a new collaborative album from two of Atlanta's biggest voices right now in the hip-hop world, Future Hendrix and Jeffrey Lamar Williams, aka Young Thug. And this album, just on name and title alone, is an exciting event because it is a huge collision of new talent. Both Future and Thugger have played integral roles in guiding and shaping and popularizing this new wave of glamorous trap music packed with auto-tuned crooning. But instantly, in preparation for this project, my mind went right to that recently released collaborative album between Future and Drake a little while ago, What a Time to Be Alive. It had a few highlights on it, but for the most part, the album felt just a little too casual, kind of just like a bunch of Future songs that Drake was merely featuring on, or vice versa. Both of them just kind of sounded like they were phoning it in on a series of very expensive instrumentals. Now, I did not assume that was going to be the case, given that Future and Thugger have a lot more in common stylistically, geographically, and for sure they have quite a bit of crossover audience. So plenty of reasons to go all in on this project, plenty of reasons to make this project huge, but unfortunately Super Slimey, just like What a Time to Be Alive, feels really informal too. I mean, there are a number of tracks on here that end really abruptly and kind of finish on a somewhat underdeveloped note, like the song No Cap or the song 3, and keep in mind, I like pretty much everything these songs had been doing up until the finish, which is incredibly underwhelming. These tracks to me sound like they would work the best sort of spliced into a DJ set or something, so that you're not experiencing and listening to the entire song, but you're kind of getting that hit, you're getting that vibe of the song before it sort of coasts out into nothing and you're kind of introduced to another track. And occasionally on this thing, I'm not really all that impressed with Future or Thugger's vocal work. Not to say that it's terrible, but for each artist, it's kind of average, and it doesn't sound like there was a whole lot of premeditation on some of these songs too, or a whole lot of writing, or a very lengthy or purposeful writing process. Sometimes it sounds like both of these guys are just hopping on a beat and riffing. For the most part, this project just kind of leans on the star power of the double bill, hoping that's enough to make the entire thing interesting, but that's just not the case. Especially on some of the weakest cuts here, like the very moody and forgettable 200, or the painfully corny Real Love. And the song Cruise Ship is one of those moments where Thugger is performing way below his already very low lyrical bar. And his vocal runs all over the track are pretty by the numbers for Thugger too. You know, Young Thug is an artist who can be really cutting edge, can be really experimental, can be doing incredible things with his vocals on a track. And then there are other cuts where he plays it super predictable, super safe, much more commercial, and which Thugger you get just kind of depends on the project, and unfortunately this one is just an instance of him not being that adventurous. And the weirdest thing about this particular song is that there is no Future on it whatsoever. And yes, despite the fact that this thing is a collaborative album, there are a handful of completely non-collaborative tracks. A couple of them are actually some of the best music Super Slimey has to offer. I like Future on the song For the Gang, which is a really heart-crushing and very introspective moment for him. The lyrics, I would say, are the most consistently mournful I've heard on a Future song in a while. And the airy lead melodies on this track kind of make me feel like I'm listening to the sad, depressing yin to like Mask Off's Yang. And while we're on the topic of depressing music on this thing, the song Group Home that finishes the entire project off is a really sobering moment on this thing too. And the song Killed Before, led by Young Thug, is a guitar-backed sort of vocal cut that sounds like it could have been on Beautiful Thugger Girls. And if it in fact had been, it would have been one of the best tracks. Thugger delivers this expansive and weird and beautiful vocal melody that he has kind of this warbly tone on it that I've never heard sing in before, at least quite to this extreme. And it's very odd. It's actually kind of gorgeous. And some of the lyrics on here, like when he hits you with this line about being bent like a centerfold, it's just one of those rare moments when Young Thug hits you with like this amazing simile and you know, this beautifully sad lyricism. that just kind of keeps me listening to him, even though he does kind of tend to emphasize quantity over quality. Again, these are good tracks, but it's kind of bittersweet given that they're not collaborative songs, and just kind of adds to this overall feel that this thing, it really just runs like a compilation of haphazard feature tracks where no particular artist is really dominating the song and there's not a strong hook on it and it's just kind of messy. Neither artist is creating something on this project that they couldn't have already made separately. I mean, the song Drip On Me sounds like a leftover from Future's recent self-titled album, but with like a Young Thug feature. And even when these guys do get some good chemistry going on a track, like no space or hook in between each artist, they're just kind of building off of one another's flow, it doesn't really last all that long. Or the performances in the track just feel kind of redundant because Thugger and Future are delivering something very similar in tone. I mean, the first truly well-written and memorable and hard-hitting track on the entire project has to be the song PATEK Water with Offset of Migos, and keep in mind this song comes after 5 very shaky tracks. The sleek synth leads on this cut are awesome. The chilly, bouncing chord progression is nice too. Future's hook dazzles. Offset's feature is really fantastic too. It's everything a banger should be. However, the rest of this project is pretty scant on highlights. Like, it's pretty underwhelming. I could see you being into it if you're a hardcore fan of each artist, or if you're looking for some very simple, vibey trap music to just put on that you're not going to think all that much about. Overall, I would say putting these guys together on a full length has been pretty fruitless. Far from a game changer. And the whole thing just kind of sounds like the musical equivalent to networking and just kind of sharing in shared audiences. It's mostly kind of listenable, but I'm indifferent toward a lot of it, and I wouldn't return to this thing outside of a couple tracks. I'm feeling a light to decent 5 on this thing. Tran?